Nobody who was in that room talked about it for years. Not because they had signed anything, not because anyone told them to stay quiet, but because what they witnessed did not fit any category they had for talking about things. A man told another man to hit him. The other man hit him, and then the room went silent in a way that rooms only go silent when something has happened that language is not equipped to hold. This is what really happened. Los Angeles, California. West Hollywood. A private gym on the second floor of a building on Formosa Avenue, 3 blocks from the Goldwyn Studios lot. October 1969. Tuesday afternoon. 2:15 in the afternoon. The gym has no sign on the door, no posted hours, no membership fees. It belongs to a private fight school that operates on referral only. The kind of place that serious martial artists in Los Angeles know about, and civilians do not. Exposed brick walls, low industrial ceilings, heavy bags hanging from steel crossbeams, a training mat in the center the color of old blood from years of contact and sweat. A single row of fluorescent tubes runs the length of the ceiling, humming faintly. The windows face an alley. Nobody can see in. 8 men are present. This matters. 8 witnesses. Not one more, not one less. 8 men who will spend the next 30 years answering the same question whenever someone who has heard the story corners them at a tournament or a seminar or a film premiere and asks, "Is it true? Did it really happen? Did Bruce Lee actually tell Chuck Norris to hit him? Did Chuck Norris actually do it?" 8 men, 8 sets of eyes, 8 answers that always, across 30 years, across different cities and different decades and different versions, agree on the essential fact: it happened. 6 of the 8 men are students of various martial arts schools scattered across Los Angeles County. They are there because they trained regularly in the facility, because they had been invited by the gym's owner, and because word had circulated, quietly through the network that serious martial artists maintain, that something unusual was going to happen that Tuesday afternoon. Something worth watching. He is 29 years old, 6 feet tall, 185 pounds of conditioned muscle. He has been training in Tang Soo Do since 1958, 11 years of daily practice, a discipline so total that his hands have changed shape from it. His knuckles are enlarged, the edges of his feet are calloused into something approaching leather. He holds black belt rank under his primary instructor and has continued testing himself against every system he can find. He has spent time studying judo. He has watched wrestlers work. He has gone to gyms and asked fighters to teach him things, not as a student seeking a master, but as a craftsman examining other crafts, collecting what is useful, setting aside what is not. He is the reigning professional karate middleweight champion of the world. This is not a ceremonial title. This is not an honorary designation. He has fought for it. He has defended it. He has gone to competition after competition and beaten the best men in the world at their own art, in their own weight class, under their own rules. His record stands at 168 wins, 2 losses, 0 draws. The losses are years old, from early in his competitive career before the refinements that competition teaches. He has not lost since 1967. He has not come close to losing since 1967. His striking speed has been measured at official competitions. His front kick can be fully extended in 0.7 of a second from initiation to target contact. His reverse punch has been clocked by credible observers using credible methods at a speed that places it in the top 1% of martial artists anywhere on the planet in 1969. He does not talk about this. He knows it the way a craftsman knows the quality of his tools, quietly, precisely, without needing to announce it. The 8th man is Bruce Lee. He is 28 years old, 5 feet 7 inches tall, 135 pounds. He is wearing a gray training shirt and dark training pants. His feet are bare. He has a small towel draped over one shoulder. He looks like a man who arrived an hour ago and has already been working, because he has. He arrived at 1 o'clock. He has spent an hour working the wooden dummy in the corner of the room, a piece of Wing Chun training equipment that has left its marks on his forearms in the form of reddened skin and the beginning of bruises that will be purple by tomorrow morning. He does not look like the reigning world karate champion should worry about him. This is, as the 8 witnesses are about to learn, entirely deliberate. What most people in that room know about Chuck Norris in October 1969 is incomplete. They know he is a champion. They know his record, they know his speed and his power and his dominance in competition. What they do not fully know, because Chuck Norris does not talk about these things, is the depth behind the record. He started training in 1958 in South Korea while serving with the United States Air Force. He trained under Korean masters who were still connected to the lineage of original Tang Soo Do, the system that predates its sport tournament derivatives by centuries. He did not train with the softness that competition culture sometimes breeds. He trained in conditions designed to produce men who could fight under actual pressure. Cold morning practice. Sparring sessions that left everyone bleeding something, 200 kicks on each leg before the day's real work began. The philosophy that technique not tested at full power against a resisting opponent is theory, not skill. He returned to the United States in 1961 and opened his first school. He studied judo while teaching karate, understood that grappling and striking occupy different spaces, different ranges, different skill sets. He competed in tournaments specifically to test what he had built. Not for trophies, not for recognition. To find out what worked when someone was trying to stop him. The answer, across 168 fights, is that almost everything works. His teachers have said in private that Chuck Norris is the kind of student who does not need permission to develop, that he absorbs what is taught and immediately begins the process of understanding why it works, not just how, and that this understanding produces adaptation that most practitioners never achieve, that he fights as though he invented the techniques himself and is simply performing them for the first time, which gives them a freshness and a danger that rote repetition never produces. He is not, the men in that room know, someone to take lightly. This is why what Bruce Lee says next lands the way it does. There is no preamble, no ceremony, no extended negotiation. Bruce Lee is at the wooden dummy. He finishes a sequence, Tan Sao into Bong Sao into a palm strike into a low kick. The rhythm of it smooth and practiced and completely automatic in a way that suggests it has been done thousands of times. And then he stops. He steps back from the dummy. He turns toward Chuck Norris, who is standing near the heavy bags watching. They have been in the room together for 45 minutes. They have spoken. They have watched each other warm up. The conversation has been polite, specific, the way conversations between serious craftsmen are specific. Technique, philosophy, the question of what works and why. Bruce looks at Chuck directly. "Hit me," he says. The room goes very still. Not the silence that follows the words "yet," that comes later. This is the stillness of men who have just heard something that does not fit the frame of what they expected. Chuck Norris does not move. "Hit me," Bruce says again. "Your best punch. Real speed, real power. Don't pull it." One of the 6 observers will say years later that he initially thought it was a philosophical statement, that Bruce was making a point about the nature of testing, that he would explain what he meant before anything physical happened. He did not explain. "Why?" Chuck says. His voice is measured, neutral. The voice of a man who is assessing a situation rather than reacting to it. "Because I want to know what your best punch feels like, and because I want you to know what happens when your best punch finds nothing." Chuck looks at him for a long moment. He understands what is being proposed. A test. Not a fight. A specific, controlled demonstration with a specific, controlled purpose. Bruce Lee is offering his jaw as a target and is confident, or claims to be confident, that he will not be standing in the path of the punch when the punch arrives. The offer is not without risk. Chuck Norris's reverse punch at full power and full speed can drop men who are trying to defend against it. These are not small men, and they are not untrained. They are professionals. They have gone down from it. "If I hit you and you don't move," Chuck says carefully, "I'm going to hurt you." "I know," Bruce says. "Hit me." There is a beat of silence that lasts approximately 3 seconds. Then, Chuck Norris decides. What follows occupies 1 seconds of real time. The 6 observers, interviewed separately over subsequent years, will disagree on aspects of what they saw. They will disagree on exactly where Chuck's fist was aimed. They will disagree on exactly which direction Bruce moved. They will disagree on whether Bruce moved his whole body or just his head, whether he moved before the punch launched or during it, whether anyone in the room made any sound before the silence arrived. They will not disagree on one thing. The punch did not land. Chuck Norris chambers. This is the technical word for the preparation that precedes a full-power reverse punch in Tang Soo Do. The rear hand draws back. The hips begin to rotate. The weight begins to transfer from the rear foot to the front foot. The shoulder begins to drive forward. All of this happens as a single coordinated motion, trained by 11 years of daily practice into something that occupies 0.4 of a second from first movement to full extension of the striking arm. It is among the fastest punches any observer in that room has ever seen. Bruce Lee is not in its path when it arrives. He has moved 4 inches to his left and 2 inches forward, a displacement so small it should not have been sufficient to avoid anything. And he has moved at a moment that the observers cannot agree on. Some will say he moved when the rear hand began to draw back. Some will say he moved when the hips began to rotate. One will say, and will hold to this through every subsequent retelling, that he moved after the fist was already traveling forward, that he waited until the punch was in motion and then was simply not there. Chuck's fist passes through the space where Bruce's face was. The air moves. One of the 6 observers, standing 2 feet to Bruce's right, will describe to anyone who asks that he felt the air move from the punch, that the speed of the strike was sufficient to create a small perceivable displacement of air in its wake. Bruce has not moved more than 6 inches total. He is still facing forward. He has not flinched. He has not raised his hands. He has not stepped back. He has not ducked. He has simply relocated, slightly, efficiently, with the precise minimum of movement, to a position where the punch finds nothing. He is looking at Chuck Norris with an expression that has not changed. For 1 seconds, that is everything that happens. The silence that follows is the thing that no one who was present can adequately describe. It is not the silence of people who don't know what to say. It is not the silence of shock. It is the silence of men who have spent their adult lives in martial arts, who understand on a technical level what they just observed, and who are simultaneously and involuntarily recalculating something large. Chuck Norris stands with his arm extended. His follow-through is complete. His body has finished doing what it was trained to do. The punch is over, and the result of the punch is standing 6 inches to the left of where the punch went, looking back at him, breathing normally. 3 of the 6 observers will later describe looking down at their own hands during this silence. Not consciously. Not for any reason they could articulate, they simply looked down at their hands. One observer will describe the silence as lasting 8 seconds. Another will say it was 3. A third will estimate 15. In all 3 cases, the number is probably wrong because duration is the first thing that memory distorts when the mind is trying to process something that does not fit existing categories. What is consistent across all accounts is this. The silence ended when Bruce spoke. "Your punch," Bruce says, "is real." He does not say this to be generous. He says it the way a craftsman evaluates another craftsman's work. Directly. Specifically, with the precision of someone who has just had the opportunity to observe something from very close range and has formed an accurate assessment. "I've felt that speed before," Bruce continues. "Not from many people, but from some. Your hip rotation is complete. That's rarer than it should be." Chuck Norris has lowered his arm. He is looking at Bruce with an expression that the observers will describe, each in different words, as the same thing: recognition. The specific look that serious practitioners sometimes exchange when they meet someone who is operating at a level they hadn't fully anticipated. "You moved," Chuck says. "Not an accusation, an observation. Just enough," Bruce says. "Only what was necessary." There is a pause. Again, Chuck says, and this single word is the moment that changes what happens next, because it is the moment when Chuck Norris stops being the challenger and becomes the student. Not in rank, not in any formal sense, but in the way that matters. He has recognized that something is happening here that he does not fully understand, and he wants to understand it, and the only way to understand it is to keep going. Again, Bruce agrees what follows is not a fight. It is not a sparring session in any conventional sense. It is a demonstration conducted between 2 men at full intensity of a single principle. The principle that movement, precise, economical, exactly sufficient movement, can make speed and power irrelevant. Chuck Norris throws. Bruce moves. The punch finds nothing. Chuck Norris throws again faster, with a slightly different angle. Bruce moves. 4 inches. 3 inches. The adjustment is smaller than the first time. The punch finds nothing. Chuck Norris changes technique. Roundhouse kick, full power, his best, the technique that has ended championship fights. Bruce is offline before it completes. He does not block. He does not redirect. He is simply not in the path of the kick when the kick arrives. The observers will later note that Bruce's footwork during this sequence is nearly invisible, that they could see him moving, could see the displacement but could not identify the moment when the movement began, that the movement seemed to follow the attack, not precede it, and this should have been impossible but was not. Chuck Norris throws 7 techniques across 7 minutes. None of them find Bruce Lee. After the 7th, Chuck stops. He is breathing harder than he was at the start. Not from exertion. The techniques themselves are not tiring. They are calibrated movements, trained and automatic. He is breathing harder because of something that takes longer to identify. He is exerting himself against nothing. "How are you seeing it?" Chuck asks. His voice is quieter than it was at the beginning of this. Something has gone out of it. Not confidence exactly. Certainty, the specific certainty that he entered the room with. Bruce considers the question. "I'm not seeing it," he says finally. "I stopped trying to see it 2 minutes ago." Bruce walks to the edge of the mat. He picks up his towel. He doesn't sit down, but his posture shifts slightly, the posture of someone who has finished demonstrating and is ready to talk. "Your punch is fast enough that seeing it isn't possible," Bruce says. "Reaction time from visual input is 0. 2 seconds. Your punch lands in less than that from full chamber. If I'm watching your fist, I'm already behind. Chuck Norris is listening with the focused attention of someone taking notes they will keep for decades. So I watch your body, Bruce continues. Not your hands, not your feet. Your center. Where your center is going is where the technique is going. Your center moves before your hands move. Everything in your body telegraphs something before it arrives. Not much, but something, and something is enough. You're reading my weight shift, Chuck says. Not a question. Your weight shift, your hip initiation, the small tightening in your shoulder that happens 3 seconds before you commit, all of it. There is a silence. That's something you developed, Chuck says. That's not a natural ability. It took 8 years, Bruce says, and I still miss things. I still get hit. This is the most important sentence Bruce Lee says in that room on that afternoon in October 1969. It is the sentence that every observer later identifies, when pressed, as the turning point of the demonstration. Not the first punch that found nothing, the quiet admission, unprompted, that he still gets hit, that he is not perfect, that he is a practitioner of something, not the final word on something. Chuck Norris looks at him for a long moment. I want to show you something, Chuck says. Chuck Norris walks to the far end of the training mat. He faces the far wall. He breathes once, slowly, the breath of someone settling into something they know well. Then he demonstrates his kata. The form he performs is one of the foundational forms of Tang Soo Do. He has practiced it, by a conservative estimate, 12,000 times across 11 years. Every observer in the room knows kata. Every observer in the room has seen masters perform kata. What Chuck Norris does with this form is different from what every observer has seen before. And the difference is not in the technique. The technique is textbook. Every transition is proper. The difference is in the quality of the intention inside the technique. The form takes 4 minutes and 11 seconds. When it ends, the room is quiet again. A different quality of quiet than the silence after the first punch. That silence was stunned. This silence is reverential. Bruce Lee has watched the entire form without moving, without speaking. That, Bruce says when it ends, is what I was missing. Chuck turns. There's a quality in what you just did, Bruce says, that I don't have yet. The form is alive. Each movement has full intention. Every position isn't a point you're passing through. It's a complete thought. It's the breath, Chuck says. The breath teaches the body when to commit. Show me. What follows is an hour in which Chuck Norris teaches and Bruce Lee learns, and the 6 observers stand at the edges of the room and understand they are witnessing something that will not happen again. 2 men at the top of their respective disciplines, without ego, without competition, building something together. Chuck demonstrates the breathing pattern. Bruce attempts it, gets it wrong. Chuck corrects him. Bruce attempts again. Gets it partly right. Chuck refines the correction. Bruce attempts a 3rd time and something shifts, visible to everyone watching, and Chuck nods once, the nod of a teacher who has just watched a student find the thing they were looking for. That's it, Chuck says. That's the beginning of it. How long before it becomes automatic? Bruce asks. And then it stops feeling like you're doing it and starts feeling like you've stopped doing the wrong thing. Bruce is quiet for a moment. That's what I've been trying to explain to my students for 3 years, he says, and I haven't had the right words. Chuck nods. You'll have them now. The 6 observers leave the room that afternoon carrying something that has no name. Not knowledge exactly. Not experience. Something between the two. The specific residue of having witnessed 2 masters in honest exchange, without performance, without audience consideration, without any goal except to understand something more completely. Over the following years, the story moves through the martial arts community in the way that significant stories move. Slowly at first, in fragments, reaching certain people and not others, arriving with different details depending on who is telling it. Some versions say Bruce Lee hit Chuck Norris and knocked him down. This did not happen. Some versions say Chuck Norris hit Bruce Lee and knocked him down. This also did not happen. Some versions say the 2 men fought for 30 minutes and the outcome was unclear. This is closer, but misses everything that matters. What actually happened, as the 6 observers have confirmed across separate accounts over separate decades, Chuck Norris threw a full power punch at Bruce Lee's face. Bruce Lee moved 4 inches to the left. The punch found nothing. The room went silent. And then 2 men who were already very good at what they did taught each other something. 3 weeks after the session in the West Hollywood gym, Bruce Lee writes a note in one of his training journals. The note is not long. It occupies a single page in the journal, which researchers have since photographed and reproduced. It reads, in part, speed is a tool, power is a tool, precision is a tool, but the tool that makes all other tools obsolete is the body's intelligence operating before the mind has time to interfere. Chuck knows this. He has drilled it into the marrow of his technique. I can move quickly enough to avoid almost anything. He can strike quickly enough to hit almost anyone. These are not opposing abilities. They are the same ability expressed in different directions. The man who has both, movement and intention, adaptability and commitment, is the man who doesn't need to fight because there is nothing left to fight against. He underlines one sentence. These are not opposing abilities. Chuck Norris continued competing. He defended his championship through 1974, extending his record to 183 wins before retiring undefeated from tournament competition. He did not retire because he was beaten. He retired because he had understood everything that competition could teach him and was ready to build something from that understanding. The martial arts school system he developed, the style he eventually codified, carries within it, those who study it closely will notice, a particular quality of breathing instruction, a way of teaching the relationship between breath and commitment that is not common in American martial arts curricula. He has said in interviews that he learned it from someone he considers one of the 3 most important martial artists he has ever met. He does not, in most of these interviews, say who. Bruce Lee died in July 1973. He was 32 years old. He died in Hong Kong of a cerebral edema, the cause of which has been disputed and examined and re-examined across 5 decades without complete resolution. He was preparing for the release of Enter the Dragon. He had been writing. He had been training. He had, in the months before his death, been telling students about the relationship between intention and movement in a way that was new, more specific, more grounded, more technically precise than how he had talked about it before. One of his students, in a letter written the week after Bruce's death, described a session from early 1973 in which Bruce had demonstrated something about the quality of movement at the moment of commitment. The student wrote that Bruce had tried to explain the principle for 3 years before that session, and that in that session, something had finally been right about the explanation, that it had landed differently. The student did not know where the new understanding had come from. The 6 observers in the West Hollywood gym knew. One of the 6 observers, the one who felt the air move from Chuck Norris's punch, who stood 2 feet to Bruce Lee's right, spent 27 years in martial arts instruction before retiring. In the last year before he stopped teaching, a student asked him about the best martial arts he had ever witnessed. He described the session on Formosa Avenue. He described the punch. He described the 4 inches of movement and the silence and what came after. The student asked, "Who won?" The instructor looked at him for a long moment. "Nobody won," he said. That's why it mattered. He paused. Bruce told Chuck to hit him. Chuck hit him and hit nothing. The room went silent. And in that silence, 2 men who were already great started becoming something larger. That's not a win. That's rarer than a win. He paused again. The longer pause of someone who has been holding something for a long time and is deciding whether to say it. 8 men witnessed it. 8 men who trained their entire adult lives to understand what fighting is. And every single one of us walked out of that room with the same question. The student leaned forward. What was the question? The instructor's eyes were steady. How much have we been leaving on the table? 8 witnesses, 1 punch, 2 seconds of empty air where a face should have been, and a room full of men who understood in that silence that the ceiling of what they thought was possible had just been moved several feet higher. That is what real mastery does. It doesn't defeat you. It shows you a room you didn't know existed. If you've trained your whole life and you've never questioned the ceiling of what you thought was possible, find someone who makes you question it. That is the beginning of everything worth learning. Like and subscribe, because the next story is about the night Chuck Norris returned to that same gym with a fighter nobody had ever heard of, and the session that followed lasted 4 hours and was never supposed to happen.